You're listening to the RM Podcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson, Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian. Enjoy.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Red Moon Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian,
and
Keith Cheatham.
We are back. Still 2020 here, but no, we are getting ready, everybody, for a brand new year.
It's a brand new day.
It's a brand new day.
2020 here, but it's 1984 somewhere
out there. And to be honest with you,
I feel sorry for them.
I feel sorry for them because, well, if they
Ouch.
got what we got in 1984, it was bad. It was a bad year.
I'm sure the year was fine.
But another thing that happened in that year,
certain depictions of that year, not so much.
not at all. Very, very much disappointing.
We're gonna
get to
wonder what
that,
you're
though.
talking about.
Don't know, but I'm sure.
Does it involve a woman?
I think so. There was a woman involved, and 1984.
Something amazing
and some
happened.
giant apex predator. I don't know.
I just want to know, is it any wonder why, people were so thrilled to see a sequel? Maybe not after this one. We'll see.
Here's the thing. It was
Too bad they're getting another one.
for those who don't know,
we haven't even
for
reviewed
those who
it.
haven't caught on yet, we're talking about Wonder Woman 1984. But the thing is, a lot of people were excited about this movie
We
because
were.
I was the first.
All of us
Absolutely.
were.
The first Wonder Woman so far has
fantastic.
been DC's best film in their extended universe. So everybody was hoping it's like, okay, this is the gold standard that DC finally set. All their other films before then were crap. A lot of them after were crap. Some of them have been good, but not all. And everybody was just hoping, with Patty Jenkins and how they knocked it out of the park at the first one, that the sequel was going to do the same. And I have to say, it didn't do it.
I know, it's kind of disappointing. It's a little bit.
And it's not
I
even a
didn't wanna
controversial
start
opinion
off.
at this point.
I didn't want to start off, which, here's the thing. Tonight we're live,
Yep.
Tuesday, still
You
2020.
don't say.
When this goes live audio wise to all the peeps out there in radio land listening,
Yeah.
it'll still be 2020. So the last
true. That's true.
strong movie that we reviewed is fitting for the year that it has been. That's all I'll say about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of sad, but you know what?
It does happen.
But we do have a great show. We've got our review of 1984, of course, for you. Wonder Woman 1984, that is. Soul, we're doing 2 reviews because, yes, 2 huge movies dropped on Christmas Day.
They were so huge that we didn't
We
really
had
want
to.
Yeah, we didn't want to push one off
Yep.
to wait a week because by then everybody would have already
Yeah.
seen both. So yeah.
Santa Claus brought us both.
Yes, thank you, Santa.
Thank you for
Well,
bringing us.
At least one of those.
One of them was a lump of coal.
Yeah.
He was just trying to test us for next year.
I don't want to
that's
spoil
all he
anything
was
about
doing.
Soul either, but I feel like one was a lump of coal and one was one of those gifts you open and it's still nice, you like it, but it wasn't what you were hoping for, so you're a little disappointed.
That's a very
Dang.
man. That's wow. We're just
Man.
setting it up right
Yeah.
at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
If there's one
and
person,
people
though,
there's probably going to be people are like, oh, is he saying Soul's no? Because I know a lot of people
Well,
love
you gotta
Soul.
wait.
And
Yeah.
you have to wait to
you
see
gotta
what
wait
yeah,
for
you
a
have to-
review.
Yeah, you have to
You
wait.
don't know.
Yeah.
Again, when you said
Yeah.
it was a nice present,
It was a nice present.
Well,
It
you know,
just
we're not
wasn't,
ribbing on it
wasn't
completely.
what I wanted.
but there's also something else that we have to talk about too.
Oh,
and
man.
that's somebody who can help us deal with some of the traumas that we've had through 2020, and if we're already looking ahead at 2021,
Mr. Rogers. He's
No.
gone.
he would have been one.
Much more impressive and
Prophetic.
influential.
Yes,
I would say.
I like the way. Yeah, influential.
Yes.
Bob
Absolutely.
Ross.
Gosh sakes. I love that you're picking all these dead people. They were influential at one time.
Bob Ross died? I didn't know that.
One of our
Oh my
viewers
gosh.
said that a movie ticket was around $2.50 in 1984. And she was 8 years old.
Well, you know what? That's what this one should have been worth as far as admission is concerned.
Yeah.
I would have paid to see it if it were that much.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
Let's get into it.
Well, hold on, but
yeah, you
first-
got
yes.
the influential man.
There's somebody here to talk us through rough times.
I understand. He knows he's had a horrible time, and he knows how everybody's feeling. So
I want to bring this over on
Go ahead.
our big screen here.
Yeah.
There we go.
And get this pulled up for
let
everybody.
everybody see.
I just think it's so important, okay? I just think it's such an important message. This dropped on Christmas Eve, and honestly,
he drops one every Christmas Eve, but
He
this
does.
one was most important.
That's right. What will Christmas Eve be without a message from me? That's right. What will Christmas Eve be without a message from me?
Did he shoot this at rehab?
I don't think they let you
Look,
out.
He looks like
past
he's at a
year,
rehab.
Listen,
Comes right at you.
a lot of people have reached out to me this past year and have
Look at his lips.
shared
I know he's
their
been
own
biting
struggles.
them.
It looks like crap.
And my ability to be there for them has really only been possible because of my own difficulties. And while it's been a privilege to offer support, I have to say, frankly, it's also been beyond my abilities, and it's bigger than me. Because heartbreakingly, so many have talked about things having gotten so bad for them that they've contemplated taking their own lives.
Okay,
And
it's
that's
getting
enough
serious.
for me to want to take an entirely different approach this year,
I think he's on to
to
something.
acknowledge their pain and say to anyone out there who's struggling or contemplating that idea, please, please do not take that step. If you're standing in a place that you can no longer remain standing, if you're suffering, if you need help, if you feel guilt or shame, if you're struggling with your identity, if your back's up against the wall, or if you feel that there is no path for you, whatever your situation, I promise you there is a path. And that at this time, during this holiday and beyond, even if you don't feel it, there are people out there who understand and who can help, because you are not alone.
He's here for you.
And so I just want to wish everyone
And the
a
children.
Merry Christmas, a great 2021,
Oh, thank
and
you.
say to all those out there who might be suffering, it gets better.
Wow.
It does get better.
It doesn't look like it has for
Happy
him.
holidays, everyone.
Wow. There's Mr. Spacey.
Wow.
I don't.
Well, he does throw up the
Here's
suicide.
the thing. I don't disapprove of the sentiment. I just disapprove of where it's coming from because it feels so disingenuous.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. That's
Yeah.
the issue for me. It's like the fact is for the last 2 years, this man has done his Frank Underwood impression
Yeah.
on Christmas Eve, been eerily just creepy in general.
Yes.
Yes.
Sending these messages, and then he tries to break that character this year to get serious, and it's like, dude, of all the
It's
people
somebody who
you're
was
talking to,
wanting a little bit of that
you
limelight.
need the help.
help.
Exactly.
He-
This
he
is
knew-
really not
he
about.
He knew he'd done it every year, as like you said, as Frank Underwood from House of Cards.
Yes.
He knew he couldn't do that this year after being kicked out of the show and
Yep.
disgraced and blacklisted. So he tried to get
He's
serious.
trying to maintain relevancy.
But I'm like, why are you doing this? Like, because you're tired of being not in the spotlight? And it's funny that you say, if your back's against the wall, I feel for you. It's like, no, there's a difference in people who are truly suffering this year because
Yes.
of Corona and because of being out of jobs. And you,
Like, that's the thing.
Well,
Nobody.
I mean,
I don't
hey,
even
come on,
doubt.
guys.
I-
Don't dog Kevin. Look, he's out of a job right now. He's
not out of
put
a job
people's backs
because
against
the
the
government
wall.
put him out of a job.
You know, he's used to putting young men's backs against the wall.
That's the part that gets better.
He knows
that
what
was
he's talking about. He probably called this suicide hotline himself, and now he feels like
No,
he needs to.
what
He
he's done.
caused
be a
bunch,
part of it.
He caused a bunch of young boys to call that suicide.
Well, no. What
hotline
he
themselves.
wanted was to be one of those people that you call, and it's like, I wonder if that was his own personal cell up there. I think he's just lonely.
I don't know.
I think Kevin Spacey. I mean, that's all this video cried out to me was just attention.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I haven't been in the spotlight for the last several months since my last creepy video.
It really is kind of sad because the guy's
It
a
is.
phenomenal actor.
True, he
Like, I mean,
is.
I haven't really seen a film of his where I'm just kind of like, man, that's. I mean, even in Fred Claus, he was the best part. So I'm just like, you know, it's always sad when you see someone like this that you're used to seeing give a performance
Yeah.
that entertain us because that's his job, but then you see him
you
fall
see
apart,
him
you know?
lose his mind because of what he's been through. Because again, it's like he's trying to kind of play this two sides of the coin of, oh, I'm serious, I know what's going on, and people are lambasting me and saying all these terrible things, and they're not right.
Well,
when it's
yeah.
like clearly he's proving it to us that he's either not all there,
In his
or
mind,
he's
he
putting on
hasn't
this one hell of a
done
performance.
anything wrong. I mean, even in last year's video when he was in the kitchen cooking or whatever, and he does the video, and it's just like, even then, as the character from House of Cards, he is saying, like, people are saying these things, but did you ever take the time to find out if it was the truth or not? You know, he's talking to the audience.
Yeah.
But even then, as his character, he's playing the victim role.
Yeah.
And so in his busted up mind, you know,
He's
he
the
just
victim.
he is the victim.
He's
yeah,
the victim.
absolutely.
It's just sad. But you know what? For pure enjoyment of just continuing to watch
Yeah.
the spiral, I'm sorry. Look, I feel terrible for normal people. For celebrities like this, I'm sorry. Kevin Spacey.
I mean, it truly proves how disconnected they are.
Yes.
I
yes.
mean,
Exactly.
They claim, like Hollywood claims, that they know the working class and they know the average Joe, but then you get stuff like this, and it's like, how can we take you seriously?
Yeah.
And you claim you understand people's suffering when you were the cause of your own suffering. Like,
Yeah.
you can't stand there and be like,
And
I understand what it's like to be down. It's like, you put yourself in that position.
Exactly.
Other Americans right now didn't. They had no choice
Yeah.
for what happened to them.
Oh, and
Yeah.
he's still got millions.
Oh,
he's
yeah.
still got millions
Yeah,
that
he's-
he's
he's
counting
not
on.
broke.
I mean,
He's not.
You
no.
know,
He's
the
not struggling to pay the
production
bills.
value of the video alone is, I mean, you got to think about it this way. What park can you go to in California where you don't see homeless people on top of homeless people?
Well,
I didn't see one homeless person there. So he obviously had to pay them to move, or he rented out the whole park to shoot that. And let me just, that was shot on an iPhone 12 Pro.
Oh, yeah.
You can
could
tell
tell.
that was in Dolby Vision. So the production value of the video.
You could see, like, the
man,
blood spots in his
that was the
yeah.
Oh,
thing,
yeah.
is he does look disheveled.
He
Yeah.
probably
He's
bit his
not
lips
taking
before he
care of him.
started. Well, he wanted to look that way. He probably sat there going, and it's like,
on that park bench. It's like, all right, they're bleeding. Let's go.
All right, well, if
record.
if the show hasn't already started out a little odd with Mr. Spacey, it's only going to get weirder from here because of the movie reviews that we have this week. But yes, let's go ahead, finally dive right into it. Here is our review of Wonder Woman 1984.
With what has been a pretty abysmal year for the film industry, movie viewers had high hopes to at least close the year out with a few highly anticipated films. One such film, Wonder Woman 1984, comes after multiple release date changes and after what has been one of the first years in over a decade to not host a major Marvel film adaptation. With DC Comics having such a rocky film history, this could have been their moment to shine, releasing a sequel to their most successful film in the DC Extended Universe. However, the movie fans received hasn't quite lived up to expectations. Wonder Woman 1984 stars Gal Gadot reprising her role of Diana Prince, aka Wonder Woman. Once again directed by Patty Jenkins, the film takes a leap forward in time from the first film's World War I setting to, of course, the year 1984. Now working as an anthropologist for the Smithsonian, Diana continues to secretly fight crime as Wonder Woman, and has shut herself off from people in general, having still not gotten over the loss of Steve Trevor in the first film. When the FBI asked Diana's colleague, Barbara Minerva, played by Kristen Wiig, to look into artifacts recently recovered from an attempted robbery Wonder Woman herself had stopped, amongst these items is a stone with the ability to grant anyone who holds it their greatest wish, while taking from them their greatest possession. Diana unknowingly uses the stone to quasi-resurrect Steve, once again played by Chris Pine, but begins losing her powers. Barbara accidentally uses the stone to become strong and powerful like Wonder Woman, ultimately putting her on the path to become iconic Wonder Woman villain, Cheetah. Also trying to get his hands on the stone for his own means is Maxwell Lord, played by Pedro Pascal, a well-known business and oil tycoon who is secretly broke and scraping by through lies and deceit. When Maxwell seduces Barbara to gain access to the stone, all manner of chaos and unintelligible convoluted plot ensues. Wonder Woman 1984 had many great ideas, and tries to be many things. Most of these ideas are terribly executed, and we never fully come to understand what it is the film is trying to be, because the film doesn't seem to know either. Gal Gadot is still a stunning and fantastic Wonder Woman. Newcomer Pedro Pascal makes for a terrific Maxwell Lord. The rest of the cast are fine if nothing special, but any fault from the characters is not in the acting, but entirely the writing and direction of the characters. For example, Kristen Wiig as the nerdy outcast who becomes a villain is cliched and stereotypical. Though Wiig herself doesn't do a bad job, she just doesn't have anything to work with. Not to mention, the epic reveal of her fully realized as Cheetah by the film's climax is completely underwhelming thanks to the lack of building the character as a threat and horrendous CGI. The film suffers from too many ideas and plot points, many of which feel unnecessary. The idea behind bringing Steve back is to give Wonder Woman closure and to teach her how to let go. But he is so underutilized that this lesson could have easily been learned without actually bringing him back. Instead, it only tarnishes the sacrifice he makes in the first film and offers us nothing new emotionally to get invested in, as it's clear from the get-go this resurrection is a one-off. Amongst other pointless parts of the film was the decision to place the movie in the 80s. The first Wonder Woman used its World War I setting to enhance the story, correlating Ares' actions with the war. Aside from a few jokes regarding the 80s, nothing about this movie required it to be set in that period, and nothing of interest is really done in the film to give it an 80s flair. I can say I did like Maxwell Lord's character arc of a nobody and fake businessman taking over the world as opposed to the stereotypical rich oil tycoon is bad. In fact, some of the better ideas were the ones surrounding this antagonist, but they too all fall apart. Cheetah is wasted and gets no real character growth and could have been better utilized elsewhere. And the running theme of truth feels like Jenkins decided early on that she wanted truth to be the film's theme, but had no idea what she actually wanted to say about the subject. Ultimately, Wonder Woman 1984 is a jumbled mess of scattered ideas, many of them good, but alas executed horribly. Most of what we get is unnecessary bloat rather than character development or solid storytelling. I give Wonder Woman 1984 a 2.5 out of 4 stars.
Ooh.
Wow.
Yeah.
2.5. We warned you. We warned you out there. 2.5.
I believe I gave the first one 3.5, so that's
no,
a huge
3.
drop.
I think you gave it 3.
Did I?
Yeah,
I thought I gave it 3.5.
I don't think
know.
it was. I think it was 3.
I know
looked it
Neil
up.
gave it like 3.
Yeah, and I mean, no, I
Yeah.
gave it 3, and like, here's the thing, maybe not 3.5, but it was a solid 3.
Yeah, it was a good movie.
It was a 3 leaning on a 3.5 more so than this film.
Yep.
This was almost a 2 for me. In fact, I think I told you all that's what I gave it.
Yeah.
I gave it a 2 out of 4.
I
I gave it
yeah.
2.5.
I was at 2.5 also.
2.5.
There's the thing is I liked pretty much all of like some of the ideas that they were trying to accomplish. I just felt like they didn't accomplish any of them,
Yeah.
and they went about it in the most goofiest way possible. Like I didn't think like even the ideas of the wish, like with that being like this stone from like the Greek god of mischief. I was like, okay, that makes sense because I mean they correlate. That's part of her mythology.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, you just I don't know. Even it was so silly. It's like
Yeah.
like the idea behind it was fine. But the way they executed everything was so silly.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know. It was bloated. It was from all the exposition scenes. The problem with this kind of movie too is, again, it started to get into the way of the Spider-Man 3, being a parody of itself with how many villains there were.
Mm-hmm.
Even for a 2.5-hour film, this movie handled 2 villains so badly
Yeah.
just because of the fact that they couldn't tell what story they wanted to tell. They couldn't figure it out. And then by the end of the film, by the 2.5-hour mark, I mean, I'm telling you, in all the exposition scenes, they weren't awful, but there were. I was yearning for an action scene,
Yeah.
to pull me back into wanting to care. And then the action
get it.
scenes were so bad;
Yeah.
they were poorly
Boring.
executed. Yes, and that was exactly what I felt at the halfway point through this film. By the time she's pushing trucks out of the way in the Middle East, and I'm supposed to be awe-inspired and awestruck and caring, I was bored.
Yep.
I just didn't care anymore. And it's like
Well, there's just so much that didn't like because every scene that started to do something good, and I'd start to get interested, like, oh, okay, this is an interesting idea. I like this. Would immediately just turn to crap. Even that scene you're talking about with the convoy, where
Yeah.
she's like, so many instances bugged me throughout the film.
Oh, I'll tell you one right away. One right away is for one, you're supposed to have this reigniting of what's his name back in his
Steve? Yeah.
Steve's back in the picture from the wish she makes.
Yeah.
But he's still himself even though he's in another man's body.
Yeah.
And yet he pulls an RPG that he's never seen before because
Yeah.
this is 1920s is when he dies, 1920s and 30s.
Yep.
And he puts it in a launcher in this Hummer.
Yeah, he loads it perfectly.
And he loads it perfectly. And I'm like, How the hell would he know to do that?
And then
Or
He has
fly a jet plane.
Yes.
Yeah. No.
Fly a modern, at least modern to the 80s jet plane compared to what he flew in World War I. No,
There's no way.
It's not like
way.
riding a bike.
But
Not at all.
But mentioning the jet, because that's another thing that bothered me, is there is so many times they tried to like pull things in from the comics, just like with Cheetah, which was abysmal because they didn't do anything with her. Maxwell Lord came from the
Apex
comics,
Predator.
and but they tried to cram a lot of like nods and stuff, Easter eggs from the comics in here. I mean, they even had a cameo. Well, I don't want spoil it, but there is a cameo significant at the end of the film, which they waited for after the credits to do, which I didn't understand.
Oh, I didn't even see that because I didn't.
It's in the middle of the
I didn't
credits.
even care
Yeah.
about the credits, so I was
Yeah.
like, I'm just turning
Well,
this
I
off.
saw everybody
But
alluding
what
to it on the
bothers
internet,
me
so I
is
knew to watch.
Oh, okay.
certain,
yeah.
certain things like, okay, her turning the jet invisible, that bothered me because I get that was a nod to Wonder Woman's invisible jet, but it came from nowhere. It's like she mentions like, I've been practicing this power that Zeus had to turn things invisible.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's fine.
Where the hell's Zeus?
Yeah.
That's fine. I can believe that because I mean her whole background is Greek mythology, but it would have been more believable
If they
because she
inquired
mentioned
that,
she
yeah.
mentions like I
Yeah.
practiced on a cup and then lost the cup. It's like, you know what would have been funny and would have built to her turning the jet invisible
we saw that.
if you actually made that made that a scene.
Yeah.
But the first time she ever does it on screen is when she turns this entire huge jet invisible,
Yep.
and we're just supposed to be like, oh yeah, Wonder Woman can
Well,
do
she
that.
did, honestly, when she starts rubbing her hands together in
Yeah.
the cockpit, I'm
Yeah.
like, what is
Mr.
she doing?
Miyagi.
And I was
That
like,
that
what,
was-
what is she
that
doing
was
over
bizarre.
Yeah.
Another thing that bothered me
What's
is
real quick also about that scene? It just bugged me that I'm like, I got it, quiet, intimate scene between her and Steve.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it's freaking loud as hell in a cockpit. The fact that they would just be sitting there talking at a whisper level
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
in a jet.
Yeah.
I'm like,
They don't
this-
have headphones on or
nothing.
microphones or
Me too.
nothing.
Makes
Yeah.
no sense.
Did you know that when you turn something invisible, it becomes soundproof as well?
Yeah.
Silent
Well,
too.
dumb.
Amazing.
Well, it's like she turned the jet invisible. How she turned them invisible too?
Well, everything. It's kind of like the
Everything
island.
that's touching
like,
it.
Everything
you
that's
see it
within
like,
it.
Like
Yeah.
you can't see like
See,
with
it's
the island
just-
because that's how Zeus turned the island.
If you have to try to
invisible.
explain it in stupid ways,
Well, I mean,
then
no,
it's
that's
just
not a stupid way. Like that's legit. Like that's where she got like the power because Zeus turned their whole island invisible.
It's just the
they
way
didn't
in which
make
it
the
came
They
connection.
had like an
about.
invisible shield or something around it.
Yeah,
Like-
they still do.
Okay.
Yeah, the island's still invisible. to
I
all
get- I
humans.
get it.
But that's
Yeah.
one of those things that they don't connect very well. And that's like I got where she went, like why she's mentioning Zeus because like okay they mentioned the first movie Zeus like did the whole barrier and then made
Right.
the island invisible, but it was just poorly executed again because again they don't really make that connection from the
Yeah.
first movie and it just comes out of nowhere.
and
But
let's-
another thing that came out of nowhere that really bugged me was I just wanted to mention
Yeah, no,
this 'cause
go
it really
ahead.
bothers me.
Yeah.
Her flight because she can't
Yes.
fly in the
Oh,
comics.
gosh.
That doesn't bother me. What bothers me is
How it
that
came
the first
about.
time she ever learns to fly, they don't show that she ever tried before or she ever wanted to. It's just randomly, oh, Steve mentioned this bullcrap about being one with the wind, and all of a sudden she just starts flying off.
Yes.
She spreads her
Yeah.
arms and she can fly.
And
And
now.
then
then
thing
she,
is-
I mean, at the end of the first movie, she pseudo flies, like
Yeah.
she kind of flies.
Well, we see her
But it's
take
just like
these
that was a
huge
little bit more.
leaps.
Yeah,
that
she
was a
always
little bit
takes
more
leaps.
believable, though.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing.
She looked like Christopher Reeves from the '80s flying as Superman.
But that's the
what
thing.
it
We've
was
seen
terrible.
Superman fly with Henry Cavill, and it didn't look that bad.
Right.
And that's saying something.
Yes.
That's Zack Snyder.
That's because Zack Snyder did it.
And,
I'm just.
and that was another thing is just it came from nowhere, as far
Well,
as the
and-
build
and
up.
here's the thing.
and it looked terrible.
It's
yeah.
honest because I've never read the comics.
He didn't know
Me
Wonder
neither.
Woman
You
could
know,
fly.
Keith
Yeah.
is our comic aficionado,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll be honest with you, I didn't know she could fly.
Nope.
So when I saw it in the movie, I didn't think she was. I seriously thought
I googled it
for some.
because I'm like, she can't fly. And
Yeah.
then I googled it and I'm like, oh, she can't.
But again, it's about how it comes to be.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's literally from one instance where she's just taking these huge leaps, which we've seen her do.
Yeah.
And most of the time she's using her whip to grapple off something.
Her
and she's-
lasso.
Her lasso.
Yeah.
Her lasso of truth.
Lasso
of
That's true. But she's using that to grapple off something and swing around.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like all of a sudden she just leaps into the air and now she's just kind of gliding. And I'm like,
In the comics,
what the hell's going on?
She's gifted flight by Hermes, the Greek god, and which makes sense. And I'm like, they could have done something with that to tie this in, but instead it was just, oh, Steve
Right.
says you have to be one with the wind. So if I just become one with the wind, I can
Right.
fly. And I
Yeah.
was,
well, and not
It's
to
like her
mention,
flying was like channeling him or making him proud of her or something. I'm just
Steve
like
gifted her.
gifted it to her.
He inspired her.
But that was another thing, going back to like all the like Zeus, Hermes, the Greek mythology surrounding Wonder Woman, is that was something that disappointed me with the stone, because they mentioned it's like, oh, this was created by the Greek god of mischief. We're not going to mention who he is and not incorporate it any further than that. And I hated that, because in the first one, that's what I loved about the World War I setting, was that they used Ares as like this fuel that was helping to fuel the hatred and the war. And I was like, I liked how they tied that in. And I wish they had done something similar with this, like with maybe the Cold War, which was still going on during the 80s. It's like you could have tied things in a little bit better to make it less goofy.
So to kind of, I mean, this is kind of one last knock against all of the plot holes in the film. But
I have one too. So
okay, we're going to get there, because
the
80s aspect of this film was also abhorrent. I mean, the fact that it was poorly executed. They thought with a couple little dazzle of fashion thrown in there, that magically all of a sudden you were going to think, oh, we're in the 80s. Yeah, this makes total sense. But it's like, no, I'm sorry, I'm not fooled by the fact that if I've seen something like Stranger Things, which nails the look and feel, and I'm a 90s kid, but my brother and sister are 80s kids, and I can tell you right now, I saw pictures from when they were little, and I know what it should look like in the 80s.
The Wedding Singer nailed it better than this
Yes, movie. Absolutely.
There's so many movies have nailed it.
Yeah, no.
I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy isn't even set in the 80s, and it still nails 80s vibe better.
Again, you have so many classic, iconic, music and groups from that era. Why the hell is there not a single piece of music from that time period? We only get
Parachute Pants.
Yeah.
No, but I'm saying we didn't get any music.
No, he's right. There's no
80s music at all in the entire film. It's a score from Hans Zimmer, which isn't bad, but it's not spectacular.
Right.
But there's no 80s glare to it. Like, there's a little bit in the intro with the credits, but after that, I'm like, it's a typical score to a superhero movie. We don't have any other reason for why this should be set in the 80s. And then the Cold War aspect of it, which could have been pulled off, it too becomes a subtle, tiny plot point.
Just very subtle that is like, oh,
just
missiles are popping up here. And I'm like,
It's like all these wishes that everybody's getting what they want, and it's leading to the destruction of everything, which doesn't happen. But it doesn't even. I never even felt like it was going to happen.
No.
I was just like, okay, they're getting ready to fire nukes. They're getting ready to fire nukes. This is happening. This is happening.
It was almost too much to be believable.
It was just like everything.
It was to me, that was the other thing too. It escalated so quickly. Like the first hour and a half to 2 hours of the film is to try to prove to you what could happen, but then all of a sudden it just takes this drastic turn as to literally there's a part where I think her and Steve are running through the streets, and now there's all this mass chaos going on, and I'm like, when did this happen?
Yeah.
Why the hell is this going on?
Another one, it's a superhero film, so they're not going to destroy the entire planet with nukes anyway. But even still, if you did think that might go that route, you knew it wasn't going to happen because it was set in '84, and there's movies set after this one.
Yes.
Which is another thing that bothered me about the flying is Batman v Superman, Justice League, all these other movies take place after this.
And she doesn't fly.
She can't fly unless they're just saying they're scrapping those entirely, which I would be okay with. I mean, I'm just saying, unless they're saying, they don't count anymore.
Now, Sean, what were you saying about your particular gripes?
Well, one of the biggest gripes I had was actually with one of the only good parts of the film, which was some of the comedic relief. When Steve is brought back and he's trying to acclimate to the 80s. And seeing television and seeing the fashion, the change in when he's going through all the different outfits trying to find the right one, and he flips the fanny pack
which
around.
we all saw kind of in the trailer.
It's very funny, and I enjoyed it. But then they go outside, and there's so many different things that he sees, and I'm just kind of like, okay, you've taken the joke of him not knowing the time that he's in, and you've taken it so stupidly far, like. The trash can thing, when the trash can thing happened, I was just like, okay, I'm done with this joke. This isn't even funny anymore. When he's looking around and she's like this and that, and then he's like...
But he knows what an RPG is.
Yeah. But he looks at the trash can, and she's just like, that's just a trash can. And I'm just like, are you freaking kidding me? It's got holes in it. It says trash on it.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell are you... The joke is over. It was over 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So they took the one funny part of the movie and just drug it out like so many other... You would have thought Seth Rogen wrote that. Like, I mean, it was just like, how far can we take this joke? Which was... It ruined the whole thing for me because I enjoyed seeing him trying to figure out what all this stuff is.
Well, that's another thing is when you finally get... and I guess spoiler alert, though it's not much of a spoiler because you kind of know going in, especially with the way he comes back, that it's a one-off. Like, he's not going to stick around past the movie.
Yeah.
But when they get to the point where, like, it's his time to have to go,
Yeah.
like, and she's crying and they're having this emotional moment, I felt nothing. I'm like,
Yeah.
this
At
was
that point,
it
yeah.
was really effective in the first movie, but she already lost him once and dealt with that grief. And I know the whole point of this was like her learning to move on, but it's like you could have had her learn that lesson without bringing him back.
It would have been harder and better for her to learn that lesson by not having him come back.
And well, that's
And
the
that
thing.
would, like, just having memories of him flash up.
Yeah.
You know, that would have been a more effective way, I feel like.
I agree. And the thing is, I wasn't absolutely opposed to him coming back if they did it well, but they don't use him for like
No.
most of the
He
movie.
literally
so at
is
that
just
point,
a sidekick
yeah,
for
at that
comedic
point, I was like,
relief.
well, what's his
Yeah.
purpose of being here?
Yep.
And I mean, and there were things I liked. I mean, I did like at first, for the most part, Maxwell Lord. I like the fact that he wasn't actually this rich Uber billionaire tycoon. He was just a liar scraping his way across until he got a hold of the stone. And I thought that was a decent kind of twist because when they first say he's an oil tycoon, I'm like, oh, well, that's cliched. But then you
Yeah.
find out, oh, no, he's not really. He's just faking
Bankrupt,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, well, that's more interesting.
Honestly, yeah, I thought the story arc that he had was probably the most developed in the entire film. And it was well done in the sense that he wasn't just some oil tycoon, mad evil
It could have been
villain.
better.
You know,
like I
it-
said, like
yeah.
like the ending, like I wasn't
him running around screaming his
Oh, yeah.
child's name.
Yeah.
I was like, what is this?
And that was
Yeah.
my thing. It's like I got what they were going for, and I could have gotten behind the idea of like her showing him the truth and how he was harming his son, like
Yeah.
bringing him
Yes,
around.
yeah.
I was like, that would have been really good if they had developed his relationship with his son better, because they don't.
No, they
and
don't.
if it was more serious, because you're right, it's very goofy, especially when he's running out yelling his son's name, and he's like, "I recant my wish." And I'm just like,
It was bad.
I was
And then
like,
all of a sudden, it's just like, sir, there's missiles disappearing. It's like, what is this?
Well,
It
even
was just
Cheetah, like
awful.
that CGI was terrible.
yeah. Well, besides
Oh,
the CGI,
the
coming
CGI.
from someone who's not read the comic books, it would make more sense to me for her to be like a zoologist or something like it's. Why would
I think she is in the comics, actually.
Well, and that would make much more sense. But why would a person working at the Smithsonian dealing with ancient artifacts and ancient rocks be? Why would her wish want to be a cheetah? You know,
have
I
no
know she
idea.
says an apex predator, and it just randomly picks a cheetah. I guess just like Ghostbusters, that's how they chose the form of the destructor or whatever. I mean, I don't know, but I'm just like, this doesn't make
Someone
sense
asked
for
you
her
if
to
you're
have
a
chosen
god.
that.
You say yes.
Someone asks you if you're a cheetah, you say yes.
You say
It just-
apex
no.
predator.
Yeah, it made no sense to me at all.
Well, and you already hit the nail on the head when you said CGI.
oh god,
I'm telling you,
It was terrible.
there are parts of this film that are unacceptable for 2020. I'm sorry, it's
Yeah.
been a hell of a year, but no movie deserves to have this bad a CGI in it. There's literally a part of her running on screen where it looks like they just stuck an HD television up behind her and had
Yes.
the road moving in the background. It's
she's
awful.
taking like the longest strides humanly possible.
But it looks like it's so bad.
Yeah.
And then of course the cheetah makeup and even the final fight at the end between her and Cheetah.
Yeah.
There's no good build up to it. It just kind of happens. It's really quick and over. Like
Yeah.
all of the action set pieces did not seem like they were methodically thought out. You know, I remember Peter Jackson talking about Lord of the Rings. He said the key to all of the huge battle scenes was, he says, it's supposed to look like organized chaos. There is an actual goal that is happening, and you show it continually, progressively deepening, like them succeeding or failing in a monumental way, and yet at the end of the day, it looks like it's completely unplanned.
Right.
This movie literally just is chaos. There is no organization behind it. And all of the set piece battles are lackluster. They have no thrill, nothing that it seems warranted for this day and age. It literally looks like this would have been something you would have shown us 10, 15 years ago to try to wow us.
Yeah.
And maybe we would
I
have
got
been
that
wowed.
vibe. I was watching this. I was like, this feels like a early 2000s superhero film.
Yes.
Like
Wow.
Fantastic Four or Daredevil or Elektra or something like that.
So
That's
it
what
felt like it was from 1984.
Yeah. Well, Sean, we were joking.
I don't know,
There's-
because the Christopher Reeves films are from the 80s. And
That's true. They're very good.
They're very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we've got that beer that Neil gave us
Yeah.
from 1985, and it's like
Yeah.
they should have just waited one more year.
Yeah.
It would have been much better.
Mhm.
So, alrighty, guys. Well, we've beat that horse. It's in the ground. It's dead and buried, and we're ready to move on to something that we think is a little bit more decent. So let's get on to our second review. Yes, another huge one, Soul, on Disney Plus.
Never does a Pixar film release that isn't anticipated in some regard. With the success of Disney and Pixar's film Onward earlier this year, on top of much hype and promises of Pixar's next monumental release, Soul may be one of the most anticipated Pixar films in recent years. Being an original film as opposed to a sequel like many of Pixar's more recent releases, directed by Pete Docter, famous for the likes of Up and Inside Out, and with a trailer that truly felt like a return to the emotional powerhouse films Pixar can make, Soul looked to be truly awe-inspiring. And for most viewers it will be, and yet I still feel it was lacking. Starring Jamie Foxx as the voice of Joe Gardner, a middle school music teacher with a deep love of jazz, Joe has been trying to catch his big break for years, with dreams of making it as a jazz musician. Offered a full-time job at the school he's currently teaching at, Joe begins to feel his dreams of jazz are long behind him. But when he gets the opportunity to audition for a place in the band of famous jazz musician Dorothea Williams, Joe knocks it out of the park, securing what he hopes to be a prominent future in jazz. That same day, excited about his audition, Joe falls down a manhole and instantly discovers he is now nothing more than a soul, riding an escalator to the great beyond. Not ready to die after catching his big break, Joe attempts to escape this afterlife, finding himself in the great before, a place where unborn souls are prepared for their life on Earth. There, Joe meets soul number 22, voiced by Tina Fey, a rambunctious and unique soul who does not wish to be born or ever live. When Joe discovers he cannot return to Earth without a pass, something unborn souls earn upon finding their spark, which Joe believes to be a soul's purpose, Joe concocts a plan to help 22 find her spark so that she can give her pass to him, so that he can return home and she can remain an unborn soul. Along the way, this plan lands 22 in Joe's body and him in a random therapy cat. Hijinks ensue, and they both learn powerful lessons about life and what makes life worth living. Soul has been praised as Pixar's most existential film, and in many ways it does try to be. The topic of a person's soul is a heavy one, and the film does play with appreciating life and the ideas of spirituality, but it sadly only ever gets surface level. The film and Pete Docter tackle something so huge, but seem to tiptoe around many ideas regarding faith and spirituality in an attempt to remain neutral to any one given religion. And while this is fine to create something more generic and relatable to all beliefs, it is also this safety that holds Soul back. While the film's animation is incredible, at this point for Pixar to produce anything less would be incredibly unimaginable. The story just doesn't hit with the emotional resonance in the same way as Inside Out or Finding Nemo does. I appreciate many of the things the film has to say about appreciating life, but ultimately when it comes to the issue of one's soul and the purpose of it, the film misses the mark. And with the ultimate message being to appreciate everything you have in life. And while this isn't a bad message in and of itself, it does seem to miss the mark of what faith and spirituality and ultimately a soul is for those who have faith. Regardless of which religion you believe in, Soul fails them all by sidestepping the issue for a more generic message. Soul isn't a bad film. It's gorgeous to look at, the animation design, especially regarding those shepherding the afterlife, is brilliant, and it does have heartwarming moments and a really good message. It's just that its message doesn't fit with the story it claims to be, or more or less contradicts the idea of what a soul is by making it purposeless, and while this isn't the intended outcome, it is a result of introducing deep ideas into a children's film, but being too shy to fully commit to exploring those ideas. Ultimately, Soul is charming and funny and will make most audiences happy. It's just not as well executed as it should have been for the sake of trying to remain non-controversial. I give Soul 3 out of 4 stars.
3 out of 4 stars
Yeah.
for Soul.
I don't think it's a bad movie. It's just,
Yeah, I don't think any of us.
I think it could have done a lot more with the, I mean, it's called Soul, and they really don't discuss the idea of what a soul is.
Well, they try to.
They try to, but
was
again,
gonna say,
I
I
feel like
don't-
it's very non-committal.
Yeah, well, and I think your review summed it up brilliantly. I think it's, for one, nobody's going to blame Pixar for making, a kids film.
A safe kids film, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, a safe kids film, but also, I mean, this is Pixar's bread and butter here.
Yeah.
Is when they're able to break something that is something complex or so convoluted into such a way that adults and kids alike can understand it, but also shake their head. And I mean, that was the brilliance of Inside Out.
Yes.
Inside Out, and this is no doubt its spiritual successor. I feel like Soul, or that's what it was trying to be.
Yeah.
And I feel like Soul was trying to be that one up of what Inside Out was. It's like, well, let's go a little deeper than what Inside Out is. But I feel like where Inside Out hit on all the emotional aspects of what human nature is about, and a preteen growing up into being a teenager and what they're going through, I felt like this film, it's like that's something all of us can relate to on a given level, and that's something we can all point out and say, man, the way they explain that, the way they nail it so perfectly within Inside Out, all of the little nuances and the puns. But then this film, there were just so many missed opportunities, and I think so much of that comes from because of the content matter being something that they want to explain, but in a kid-friendly way, but yet in such a way that it isn't deep, and there is nothing dense there. And I felt like that was their cop-out of not trying to offend anyone who may take personal issues with what they consider to be a soul.
Yeah.
If they chose, I'm Christian, but even if they didn't,
Well, we all are here.
But even if they didn't choose Christian, like say they decided to pick a Muslim afterlife or a Hindu afterlife, somebody's going to be offended that it's that specific religion. So I get them trying.
Well, hell,
to be...
I told Sean over there. I said, well, what about Ricky Gervais, who doesn't believe in a great beyond at all?
Yeah.
Like, no. I mean, what about atheists who
Yeah,
don't believe in
yeah.
any kind of soul?
And that's a thing. I mean, they're coming from the stance that you have a soul. So it's like, well, at that point, if you're saying people have souls, you have to commit in some way.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not bashing Pixar for not doing that. I just felt like there were some cool ideas and unique ideas, and I loved all the Jerrys. I thought that was hilarious, and their design was great.
I thought the artistic design of the whole film was fantastic.
All the Jerrys and Terry were terrific. they were absolutely my favorite part of the film. But I just felt like, I wanted more depth, more emotion. There were a few parts that kind of started to get to me, but nothing that really made me break down like Inside Out.
Yeah.
And there were some really beautiful moments. I mean, I did love when he's playing the piano and he's putting
and he
all
has
the
all the items.
Yes, that was really well done. I mean, there are really good, beautiful moments in the film. It just wasn't as good as I think some of their past stuff. In fact, I think I told you that I really went in expecting this film to blow Onward out of the water and make me really emotional, and I feel like I was more emotional watching Onward. Yeah,
I definitely was. Yeah. I no doubt was. Sean, what about you? What was your take?
I gave it 2.5. Okay. But you would say, well, we just bashed Wonder Woman, and I gave it 2.5. I give this a different 2.5.
Yes.
And this is it was a decent film. It is a film that I feel safe letting my children watch. I mean, my youngest doesn't get any of it, but but at the same time, though, coming from a Christian perspective, I don't necessarily know if I want my son growing up thinking that you can reincarnate, that your soul can pass on to another body. I don't know if I want him believing that there's a holding place or a limbo, because it's not biblical. And so there's a lot of different religious aspects about it that kind of scare me, because I kind of feel like even though Pixar this is the first time they've really touched on
something spiritual,
spiritual, and I appreciate that, because a lot of other children's movies and even adult/children movies don't touch on that. They don't take that risk.
Right.
So I appreciate them taking the risk, but at the same time, it's not really a message that I want my kids growing up believing.
I think it's safe enough. That's one of those things you just have to teach your kids that this is wrong.
It is. Yeah. But I'm not going to watch the movie and then sit down with my 7-year-old and say everything that you just saw that's not how it really works. Like I'm not going to do that. I let the kid watch it and enjoy it. But I am fearful that if we're going to make more children's movies that touch on the spiritual side,
right,
are we going to get it right, or are we going to, like you said, kind of take this generic, all-encompassing thing and spread a maybe a not
I feel like this is something
truthful
where,
message.
Again, this is a film that it's so much about our time, and it says so much about the culture we live in today. And I just feel like this is something that is trying to be milquetoast across the board.
Yeah.
Where
you can feel that.
Yeah, and it tries to. There are a lot of things that the wandering souls, the lost souls that they go into. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of little caveats that I feel like they nail, and they're on the cusp of pointing to something that's very, genuine, and also very, it pays respect to what the message they're trying to share and what most people would agree with. But there's still an aspect of the film too that I just felt like, as a whole, I felt the same way. As Sean, you had actually said it to me next door when we were talking about it. You were talking about how, the idea of a soul existing outside the body, yet, when he sits there and he's looking down on himself and he sees himself in a coma. And I'm like, well, I don't think that when people are in a coma, you hear of people having out-of-body experiences. And
Right.
you can
But
kind of...
You're in a coma, you're living. I mean, your
your soul
Right.
is still
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah.
And so there were just different little aspects of it here and there that I just didn't think were as spot on and as polished as they were in Inside Out. Inside Out, I felt like every instance of what they were describing and showing felt like it was executed in, they had thought through that the whole way. In this film, I just felt like there were so many of these abstract ideas that they left abstract. They were kind of moving in a direction to try to answer it, and then they just kind of left you hanging like, well, we're not really going to wrap that up, because if we do, then that's maybe where we'll step on somebody's toes.
Right.
And so they kind of had this kumbaya feel-good message of, well, what really makes you who you are and what makes you a beautiful soul is that you just enjoy life as
appreciate
life
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
And I was like, I just can't agree with that.
I agree. I didn't like, because there was, when he was talking about the spark, and one of the Jerry's is like, oh, you silly humans, you're always thinking, a spark is your purpose. It's like, and I liked what he was getting at about, like, there's more to life than, like, loving piano.
Your hobby.
Yeah. I like that aspect of it, but I do still disagree with, like, the idea that, like, you have no like, there isn't a purpose other than appreciating everything. And I think that's very generic, and I don't agree
I think
with
that's just flat
don't-
out wrong.
Yes.
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree that it's like there is just no purpose.
Well, with Inside Out, you have a kids movie, but like you mentioned, and you even mentioned it in the review about it's a movie that both children and adults can watch and get the messages that they need to get from it. Like, I mean, if you're an adult and you're watching Inside Out, you understand, you're seeing the deeper part of that film. The kids don't see the deeper part, and I don't feel like, and I feel the same thing with Finding Nemo. A child just doesn't understand fully what it's like to lose your child, whereas an adult feels that. They see that film and they know that their heart would be falling out of their body if their child just turned up missing and they had to go search. You know what you would do as a parent to go and seek out your child. Even I even see so many amazing messages in WALL-E, which is not one of Pixar's best movies.
I like
but
WALL-E,
it does go deep into human nature and where we're kind of going in our world of laziness.
I fully
and
believe
everything.
we're all going to be them big fat
the big
things
fat
floating
people
in
floating in chairs.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
absolutely going to happen.
Every day of my life, it's getting closer.
I'm just saying adults
sad.
adults are able to pull that deeper message out of a film where a child might not be able to. But I didn't feel like this film had both of those. I didn't feel like, as an adult, I'm watching it and I'm really only seeing the safe kids movie. I'm not seeing this deeper message that
and it's
resonates
weird.
with
It's
me
like,
at all.
And that's the bizarre part about it, is because we're not used to this with Pixar.
No.
We're used to them taking that leap of showing, and I think on a more human nature scale, they're more, they themselves are much more passionate and driven to do so.
Well, for me,
But that's kind of the irritating thing about this film, is there are moments like that, but overall, its overall message, I just feel like they just don't drive it home as faithfully.
I agree. I was going to say, for me, what was more shocking wasn't even that it was Pixar, because Pixar has been, I mean, we got Cars 3 and The Good Dinosaur from Pixar. They've had some that aren't exactly this. What really shocked me was that it was from Pete Docter, because every Pixar film he's made has been this emotional powerhouse. And I mean, granted, I understand you can't always make a winner, and Pete Docter was bound to make one that wasn't the best, because I don't think this is the worst by any means.
No,
This
not at
movie
all.
But
was
still.
it was kind of touted to be their next
Inside
big,
Out,
huge movie. Yeah.
And I do
The
think
Good Dinosaur was never. It was never
was
even
never praised
No,
that way,
nobody
no.
even
but it's
saw
funny
the,
because I do see that, here we are. We gave it 3 out of 4. We don't hate the movie at all, but I do see this as being hailed from, again, I think it's this. I think it's different, coming at it from a Christian perspective.
True.
Of, knowing what, postmodern thinking is and postmodern culture is. And I feel like there are so many lost souls out there who would look to something like this movie and they would find some meaning and message in it. And I think it's like, no, this is not where your message and your meaning and your purpose come from.
Yeah.
And if you watch this film expecting that, and you don't already have a purpose for yourself, then you will walk away either feeling disappointed or you'll feel like this answers some questions on the surface level. But the moment you get to where you're feeling like the nobody or Tina Fey plays 22 in this film.
Nobody.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, you get to that point in your life, there's just so many things in this movie that it doesn't confront and it leaves out. And again, it is a kid's film.
Yeah.
I don't think that was their intention with this film, but it's going to get harder the deeper they go on that kind of level to explore these abstract ideas and get down to something that is spiritual and that is so personal. You're going to have to either start splitting hairs and risking offending someone, or you're going to have to choose this kind of generic path that is not really going to be so deep.
One of the other things that I did appreciate about the film, and it kind of goes in contrast to some of the conversation we had last week, is I feel like too much of the time films are being made to really kind of make racial tensions out to be something that's just overdone. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm saying it's pushed to the front to make it apparent to everybody. But this movie, one part that I really freaking loved was when it shows the flashback to him as a child.
Yes.
And his dad takes him to the jazz club. And one of the things his father says to him is like, this music, this is our music. Like, this is our biggest contribution to society.
Yes.
And I love that because it's showing something positive for kids to see about race. Here is an amazing contribution that the black community has brought to not just their culture, but our culture. Like, who doesn't love, to be honest with you, you can't watch the movie and listen to the music and not get into it. Like the jazz music, I'm not even a fan of jazz, but movies like this and Whiplash and movies that really showcase the precision. As someone who played drums, like the precision of jazz music is absolutely ridiculous.
Well, and that's one thing I love.
There's no other kind of music like it.
I like the fact that the movie's title plays that kind of double entendre of being.
Well, that kind of got me because I kind of thought soul and jazz are two completely different genres.
Soul music.
But I get it. Yeah, from your heart.
When he gets lost in his passion, he goes to that place. Yeah. Like I love them describing that euphoric place that we've all gone to when we're in the moment, we're in the zone. Like I love the way they describe that, and I thought this was such a good movie to use that as which it's funny because even Pete Docter himself said that he wasn't expecting it to be like for Joe to be the character.
When he first started writing in the movie, he said that Joe was not African American and he was not a jazz musician. He originally started writing him as either a scientist or just a generic teacher or something like that. And then he thought, well, he wanted somebody that wasn't going to be well off, but still had an interesting job that any average Joe could be a part of. And he said, well, yeah, exactly. And he said, you don't have to be rich or a college graduate to be a jazz musician.
Right.
And he said, okay,
to be an artist.
Yeah. So he said, but he said specifically jazz.
I'm just saying music is an art. So that's what I'm just getting.
So he said he chose Joe as a jazz musician, and they thought, well, if Joe is going to play jazz, that is something that did come from black culture.
Yes.
And he said, so it's only fitting that Joe be black. And then the entire film kind of became about like Joe and his life, and you got the black culture from that. And I really appreciated where Pete Docter came from, this mindset of how it just organically grew, and it became like one of the better aspects of the film, in my opinion.
No, absolutely.
All right, guys, I think we've got to move on because it's 3 out of 4 stars for Soul. We're literally spending an hour on 2 films.
Yeah.
I think that's the longest we've ever gone.
Well, they were two
big films.
And
that's the reason why we saved 2. We had to do these 2 because, again, everybody's watching them right now. They're streaming.
Close
they're
out
available.
the new year with 2 of the biggest films.
Yeah. Exactly. And you know what? We're not stopping there. We're continuing. That's right. We're not done yet. We got one headline that we're talking about other than Kevin Spacey. So we're moving right along. Let's get to it.
Wow.
That's right. Headline time. Y'all ready to talk about some headlines?
Yeah.
All right, we got to get to it. That's right. Tom Hanks, he's come out and he's just said theaters are not done. They're coming back.
They're not going to die. They're just not going to show small films anymore.
But they're only for blockbusters.
Yeah.
So basically, he said, anything that,
I mean, I don't think that's necessarily. I could see how one would draw that conclusion.
yeah.
Like,
It's
I
a
don't.
possibility.
Yes, I
Right.
agree. I don't know that I agree it's what's going to happen, but I do think it could be very well a possibility.
I agree.
That movie theaters open up
Look,
and that
this
we
is
see.
kind of the bittersweet, this is what we've been talking about. This is kind of, I roll my eyes when they make these kind of predictions because it's like, for one, any industry that is going through struggles and I mean, you have your Sears, you have your Kmarts that just go under and they're gone. But the theater business is going to be vibrant when the time allows for it to be vibrant.
Yeah.
We talked about it before, even with AMC going bankrupt. If they go bankrupt, there's going to be somebody at some point that buys that property, that buys up that IP, and they
It's
make
gonna be
it
the next
original.
Hostess.
Yeah.
That's all.
The next hostess.
Yeah.
It's gonna
It's
come
gonna be the
back,
next
And it's not
Twinkie.
going to die.
and the food sizes will be the same price but smaller.
Is the Twinkie smaller?
I think they're. Well, I don't know. I
Keith's
feel
like,
like
damn
it's
right they are. I
They're
wanna-
15% smaller.
15%
and there's
smaller.
12% less cream.
There used to be 3 holes on the bottom where they put the filling in.
Now there's only 2.
There's
Yeah.
only 2?
Yeah.
Really?
That's a lie.
I don't
totally
know.
have no.
Listen, it's 15% smaller,
Listen, Linda.
but the price is the same.
They only give you half a ding dong now.
But yeah, no, I was just I could see that being I mean there's reason to think that even Warner Brothers have already stated that even when theaters come back open, like with their new DC
Yeah.
model, they're going to release
Now-
but they're going to release
yeah.
major films to theaters.
Yeah.
But then the smaller, more risky superhero films, like they're making
does
a
that mean?
like Supergirl, Static Shock, the ones that people don't really know about. They're going to do those are going to be the movies they make for
You
HBO
just picked
Max.
2 movies
Wow.
that are a black man and a woman.
They said it, not me. They said it.
They said it.
Just
That's
saying.
true.
Apparently, they don't think those films can lead well in theaters. They're going to put them on HBO
I'm
Max.
telling you, you talk about the
By the
diversity
time
issues
that
in Hollywood.
happens, it'll be
Yeah.
Super they and not Super girl.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just be honest.
Super
There's
Z.
not going to be a
Dude, that's
Super
that
Z.
honestly,
Zer.
Super them.
Super
Zer.
Zer. That just sounds like a
I
villain.
want it. I want it.
We need
Every time I hear
Zer.
Every
Zer
time-
is Toy Story.
No, that's Zurg. But that's
Zurg.
what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Every
that's
time I
right.
hear Zer, I think of Zurg. It's like Emperor Zurg.
But no,
Yeah.
I honestly believe that it's just going to be a matter of time. The fact is I understand everybody's being dismal about theaters right now. In fact, one of our other headlines, which we're going to move briefly beyond into our Storytime segment, but it was the fact that, Wonder Woman came out, was the best in the pandemic, which it was an abysmal 16 million.
Domestically, I mean,
Dome-
85 million
True.
worldwide, which is nothing to sneeze
No,
at,
and they're even
considering
saying
what's
that
going on.
because of that success overseas, even though it wasn't in China, because in
Yeah.
China it dropped 92%
Yeah.
from the second week. But the fact is that with the success of Wonder Woman in theaters overseas, they're saying this is giving an extra life to theaters.
Yeah.
That
Well, I
Tenet
think
was
it
supposed to
proves
provide.
that if
Yeah.
studios had stopped getting cold feet and just released their damn movies to theaters,
Exactly.
people would have gone
There
back.
would have been reasons to
Grant-
go to the theater.
Granted, I know a lot of that was hard because so many states in America's governors were keeping theaters shut down.
Yeah.
But if they had put movies in the theaters that were open, they still would have had a much better year.
Even
than
at
what
50% capacity.
it would have been
Yes.
much
Yeah.
better than what we have now.
Well,
yeah.
and I think it would have been only time will tell. No, they wouldn't have been the huge releases that they were expecting. Like MGM, I can understand them saying, "No, we'll wait till full capacity."
That's because
You
they
know,
don't have
they-
anything.
they're
They've only
betting
got-
on 007.
That's it. But all these other films, it's like, okay, take a year loss. No, you're not going to make a big amount on these blockbusters, but the blockbusters in the next coming years will be bigger. And it's the same with what
And you
Tom
keep
Hanks is
people
saying
wanting
here.
to go to the theaters.
Exactly. And once they start going back for the blockbusters, you'll have the theater business that's going to be healthy. You'll have these blockbusters that can't be turned out every single month or every other week.
Yeah.
So you'll have to have movies that are released in between.
And the funny thing is, Tom Hanks says, the smaller films will go to streaming, large films to theater. And it's like, that's kind of how it's already like. When's the last time? I mean, I'm not saying smaller films weren't going to theaters before Corona, but think of how many you really saw in theaters. A lot of them were already
Yeah.
going to
I
Netflix
think
or
it
Amazon or Hulu.
Sucks for Tom Hanks because all of his films are small films.
Well,
I mean, News of the
recently-
World
Yeah.
is not a blockbuster. It's not going to be a blockbuster.
well, but it's still But
Greyhound
was supposed
wasn't
to be
a blockbuster.
But that's because it was bought up by Apple. It was supposed to release in theaters and be
True,
a bigger movie.
but even I still don't think that would have pulled in.
I don't think so.
huge amount
I think
of-
that was
yeah.
No.
those are the ones that the theaters bet on and
yeah.
that the studios bet on, hoping to pull in the
Listen,
money
we
from
all,
the big
we
stars.
all know Cloud Atlas was a major blockbuster
Cloud
for Tom,
Atlas
for
was
Tom
the
Hanks.
bomb.
Okay,
It
Yes.
was a bomb.
It was a bomb. Yep.
Alrighty, guys.
I put that one up there with freaking Jupiter Ascending.
Oh no, it wasn't
the
that
true
bad.
Yet you speak the true. Okay, I'm quoting the movie.
Cloud Atlas
Brandon,
is
I'm
not
quoting
that
the
bad.
movie. Okay, did you not just?
Oh, he
says
his
that.
face. He just got
You speak
serious.
the true.
I'm just saying,
The true
Jupiter
true.
Ascending. Eddie Redmayne
It was
has
that
never
bad.
done as bad a performance in his entire life.
Tom Hanks may have never
Then
done as bad a performance as you should watch Cloud Atlas. It's
Yeah.
pretty bad.
Cloud Atlas is terrible.
Well, we know if theaters come back open, it's not going to be those movies that save them.
No.
No,
So we're still going to have the same
it's going
issue.
to be Matrix 4.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah.
Alrighty, guys, that's going to do it for our headlines this week. Let's move on right into our story time segment.
It's story time, where the podcast members tell their stories.
Story time.
Tell me a story, Papa.
That's what we need to add at the end of that. Keith, you came up with it this week. I'm going to let you introduce it.
Well, I was thinking, and this came entirely about at work. What makes you tick? And by that,
Is this
I
like
mean,
a soul
My
question?
soul.
And here's the thing. I don't really want to know what makes you tick, but what type of ticks do you have? Because I'm guilty, and I think all guys are. I'm not saying women don't have ticks, but I know men, we just have compulsive ticks sometimes. And I'm guilty of it,
I blame this on the
and I'll do them at work. And here's the thing. And this came about because we have cubicles where we work. And, you know, you're stuck in this cubicle for most of the day. Sometimes, you know, depending on what type of day you're having, whether it be slow or just hectic, you get restless, you get extra energy you got to burn off. Sometimes I'll get up and stretch. Sometimes I'd kind of like walk around my cubicle a little bit if there wasn't nothing going on. But
Yeah.
now they have these stupid plexiglass
Well, yeah.
dividers. So then when I get up and walk around and
You got
people
the Rona.
people are looking at me, I feel like a tiger in the zoo. Like I'm walking around this plexiglass thing, and I'm like, okay.
Carol Baskin,
so
she'll get
so
ya.
now when I get this burst of energy, when I've done a really good job or accomplished something at work, and I got excess energy, I have this tick now where I just like I beat my chest like a gorilla. I just like I'll be doing something and I'm like, yeah, I just knocked out a bunch of those. And
What?
yeah. Nobody sees. I
See,
do it when nobody's looking.
I was going to say the difference
it's
between
just-
you
it's
and me
just
is you
funny.
do it in public. I do it in private.
You make weird noises in public.
I
I've heard
do
you
all the
it.
time.
Like,
All-
yeah, he does. He does the. I get like,
Can't help it.
but I'll also get like restless leg syndrome, and I'll tap my leg, and I know.
I
know,
definitely have in the morning when I'm
I
stretching.
do that. I do
Yeah.
that all the
I get
time.
Yeah.
let
And
restless
sometimes I'll be
leg.
doing it, and I'll start shaking stuff because I'm shaking my leg so hard.
Oh,
and
you're doing it to the
and-
table
Yeah, I'm
right
doing
now?
it right
Yeah, he
now
is.
as an example. And people will just be like, "Dude, you're shaking that. Stop!" And I'm like, "I can't help it.
I can't help it. My legs just got to. Now I do that.
I got to do it." And the thing, we started this thing where when something's like over the top ridiculous, or there's somebody that's like just yammering on.
Actually,
and I'm not
it's
really,
also just
I'll
the most
be like,
randomest of
I'll just be
times.
like, "Huh," and. I've gotten so used to doing that now is that people can like I do it to my mom and like she'll be talking to me on the phone
It's annoying.
and I'll just be like, huh, and she'll be like, what? And I'm like, what? And she's just like, why'd you say huh? And I'm like, I don't know, I just did it. And she's like, oh, I just thought maybe you saw something or so. I was like, no, I don't know. I
See,
just, huh.
it used to be a running joke, and now
Yeah.
he's gotten so used to
I just
doing
do
it.
it.
He just does it.
He just does
Yeah. I
it
just do it.
automatically.
Yeah.
I don't
You
even
can't
think
control
about it. Sometimes I'll just huh, and then people will be like, what? And I'm like, I don't know, I just did that.
Sean, what about you?
Oh man, I'm really struggling to think of
Oh,
something specific. Like
well,
I mean,
we both have the same thing, honestly.
Yeah, one of them's
Singing-
I like to sing and make up songs,
Yep.
but that's when like absolutely nobody's around. Like if I'm
By yourself.
yeah, and it's really weird because we both do the exact same thing. We start
Start
off
off
with
with
the
the
real
lyric.
lyrics to
Yep.
a real song,
And then just
and
go
then
off
just
the
change
rails.
them into something completely inappropriate.
Just ridiculous.
And
I do that.
Yeah, I love doing that, and I pop my fingers all the time.
oh, I do. Yeah.
Pop my knuckles all the time.
Oh, I do that. At work.
I've been known to talk to myself.
oh,
like,
I do. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
a tick though.
I think that's normal.
I would say
think
everybody
everybody
talks
talks.
everybody
themselves.
talks to
Yeah.
That's
themselves.
weird. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
talking to my soul.
Maybe
You probably are.
Maybe
Well,
my
you're-
soul's talking to me.
Maybe you're talking to God.
I'll snap sometimes.
You know.
No,
Like if I'm
I
walking
don't.
around doing something, I'll just be like, just snapping my fingers.
Well, that's
You have
true.
a lot of nervous tics, Keith.
Yeah.
They're not
Look,
nervous.
They're
They're
okay.
just.
Well, all I know is there was one time we were
It's
standing in
ADHD.
it.
It's ADHD, I think.
This is story time, so I'm gonna tell a story.
Tell a story.
Oh, God.
This
There
one
was
might be a
literally-
nervous tick.
No, this
I'm not
is
saying I don't have
nervous.
nervous tics, but most of my tics aren't because I'm nervous. It's just because I.
Okay,
have like
so this
attention
one wasn't
deficit
nervous,
disorder.
but this was definitely one that you didn't know you were doing. But we were sitting there in a gas station, and we were tasked by my mom and dad. This is when we were like
Well,
maybe
that wasn't
11
a
or
tick.
12.
That was just me not thinking about it.
And we're sitting there tasked with going in and getting a couple Cokes.
Yeah.
So we walk in to get some 2 liters, and I'm like sitting there looking. I'm kind of looking at them,
He
and I'm
grabs
just
one
like,
and hands it to me.
well, I hand one to Keith, and I'm like, we'll get that. And I'm looking at others like, what, you think Mountain Dew would be good? Or, you know.
I love
so
this
then
story.
I go ahead and I grab it off the shelf, and I look over.
And I have the Coke bottle in my jacket.
He's putting it in his jacket. And like, yeah, not even
Not
thinking
to
about
take it. I was just gonna take it to the register and pay for it. I just put things in my coat to hold on to them.
And so, but it looks straight up like he's about to steal
Stealing
something.
2 liters.
Brandon's like, Keith, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm just holding this Coke.
No, he seriously is like, oh, I didn't even
Yeah.
know. Oh,
I
I
didn't
didn't
think
know.
Didn't
about
even
it.
realize.
No.
Oh yeah, that wasn't a nervous thing. That was just me. Like I hold things in my jacket,
Yeah.
and
He says that now.
I still do it.
He's
I don't think about it.
It was thievery.
If I'm by myself, I'll put something in my pocket in the store and take it out and buy it at the register.
Keith doesn't realize his nervous tick is a klepto. He is a klepto.
Klepto.
No, I don't. I mean, I do have nervous tics, which are different, but a lot of like my like, because I'll twist paper clips at work. Like if I get bored or distracted,
I will bite pen caps if I've got like.
I
a-
Really?
twist them. I twist them
Okay.
out.
I'll bite them.
Yeah, I bite my nails.
I
See,
do
yeah.
that. I
Yeah, I
definitely
bite
do.
my
All,
nails
all
with
of my
my
pen
nails.
caps.
I
at
look
work
like
no
Elijah
longer.
Wood.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
like I've got the one ring right here.
All of my
with
pin caps
nasty
at work
fingernails.
don't have that. You know that little stem that like when you put it in your
Yes.
pocket.
Yeah.
None of them have it because I twist
You
them all
twist
off.
it off.
Yeah.
I get like I need like fidget.
I used to
cubes
do
or
that with
something.
cans, like Coke cans. I'd twist the.
I still do that with
Yeah.
cans.
I
the
do
tab
that.
off.
Yeah.
And then I'll
Yeah.
split the tab in half. And
Yep,
then I'll put
yep.
it in the
Break the
can.
tab in
when I'm
half.
done
Yeah,
Wait
with
that's
it.
till you're
weird.
done drinking.
Yeah, I don't know. I
Even
don't know
though
if that's really. I think if everybody, if there's enough people that do
See,
that, then
I
it
don't
can't
think
be
those
considered.
are ticks.
Yeah.
Ticks to me are like I'm sitting there in a quiet room. Like when I'm at home alone,
Mm-hmm.
I'll be editing. I'll be deep into something, and then I'll just get up to stretch. And while I'm stretching, I'll just be like, ah! Like I'll just yell
Because I do that too.
randomly.
Maybe it's not
Yeah.
that
I
everybody
do
does
that-
it.
I do
Maybe
that
it's
when
just
I
the three
yawn
of us just
sometimes.
are so weird that
Yeah.
week. Because
like you give a yawn.
I'll
and you're just
yell
like,
at my dogs. I'll be like, I'm glad I don't live in an
Just
apartment.
like yell.
Yep.
Now let's be
I'll
honest.
scare the shit out of
Let's
my
not
dog
get.
on
We won't
purpose.
get too.
Ellie, I love it. I
You
love
scare the dog.
Ellie, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Not Luke. He's the good one. So I
He
don't.
don't get scared.
I don't
He's,
scare
a, he's
him.
a pit bull. He ain't scared of nothing.
but Ellie, I love scaring the
So
crap out of her.
to not get too graphic, as 3 males sitting here,
Uh-oh.
how many times have you just caught yourself with your hand in your pants?
all the time.
Yeah.
All
that's
the-
not
so
even-
that's not a nervous tick.
No, I'm just adjusting myself.
well, all men, I think, put their hand. Well,
No.
When you're just sitting there.
No, you're just sitting there watching
Oh.
TV,
you
and
ever
you just
see me with your hand down
yeah,
your
you get done
pants?
watching a movie,
Like-
you're just
like-
like,
like
why
Al
am I
Bundy,
holding
yeah.
my junk right
Yep.
now? Like why?
Like Al Bundy, you
Yeah.
You just
Yes.
Put,
well,
yeah.
it's
like-
weird. I'll
That's
I-
if that's
here's
if I
the
even
thing.
have pants on. Most
But
of the time, I'm
here's
just
the thing.
sitting
What do
down
you
there in
do
my
after?
underwear.
What
There
do
you
you do
go.
after it?
What do you mean?
What do you do after you find yourself?
Okay,
with your
not
hand down
every.
your
Okay, I will say, not everybody sniffs themselves.
bull? He
Stank
does
dick.
it. He does.
He
He
does.
smells himself.
I don't sniff myself.
I straight up smell myself. I
Not
don't-
every time.
Not
but
every
I have,
time.
I have been known
I'm
to
not
do
saying
that.
I'm not saying I've never sniffed myself, but
it's
I don't
a way
do
of
it
checking.
every time.
I mean,
It's
let's
just-
be
yeah.
real. We're not dogs. We can't put our nose
No,
down there
Sweaty balls
to
is
smell.
a real thing.
So it's just
Well,
kind of like
that's why you
yeah,
wash
they're
yourself.
sweaty. I need
And-
powder.
Or,
you know?
or like, oh,
You
it
need to
stinks. I
scrub
need to
your- scrub
shower.
your
right.
taint, yeah.
Exactly.
I'm just saying. Get some hot water and some soap, and you go to town.
you can't. But you can't do that while you're at work.
Well,
you know,
no,
you
you
can't
can't
take a
while you're
shower.
at work.
But it's just like you know,
You go home and do it when you get
go
off
to the
work.
bathroom or whatever,
And
standing at the urinal.
I do
you're just
not.
kind of like
I do not touch myself at work.
No.
I've never stuck my hand.
no.
down my
I
pants.
mean,
Yeah.
well, you got to touch yourself to pee.
Well, I don't
yeah.
sniff myself after I pee either.
I've done that. I've definitely done that. I mean,
Keith is the most couth of all
he
three
is
of
because
us.
I mean, I'm not
anytime,
saying- I do-
anytime
I
my
do-
hand's
I'm not
down there, I'm
saying-
gonna smell it.
I don't do it every time. I'm not saying I've never done it. I have done it. I just don't do it
Now,
every
the
time.
worst
I don't
is-
do it every time either. I don't think
And I
Brandon
don't, and I don't
admitted
do
to
it
that
when
either.
I pee at work.
I don't. Not every time.
Not every
It's
time.
just not every time. But I will say, like, the worst is when I'm getting in the shower.
Sometimes you just got to know, though. Especially
That's
when
what
you
I'm
already
saying.
feel you're
Yeah.
sweaty. When you're
yeah,
like, it's
yeah.
like,
You
know
reach
you're
down there
sweaty,
and
you're
feel like, oh dang.
Yeah, when
Yep,
it's been
that's
like you've been
bad.
walking around all day and you know it, yeah.
Yeah.
But when I'm getting in the shower, I will stick my pinky in my belly button,
Oh.
and I'll
I
smell it.
thought you were
before-
going somewhere.
Yeah, I was
just
like,
like,
I'm very
oh my
scared of
God.
where this is going.
No, that
I take
that
a
doesn't
washcloth
make me
and I
tick.
scrub my belly button out.
God.
But I
Sticks
will.
his pinky in there in the shower. I was just like,
No,
I
I'll
don't
stick,
know
where it's
I'll
going,
stick my
but I don't
pin-
like
it. Yeah,
before,
get the
before
lint
I,
out.
Before I get in the
Yeah,
shower,
yeah.
I'll stick my pinky in
I
my
don't
belly
do
button.
my pinky, but I do take like my washcloth and I put it in there and wash it all out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to
You
each
can
his
get a
own.
washcloth in your belly button?
See, I
Like the
can't-
tip, like you take the very tip. I mean, it's not the tip of a washcloth's not any bigger than
Okay.
your than your
You
pinky.
just make. Well, I guess you make it like into a point.
I got
You
a
get it
little,
into a
I got a
point.
little belly button.
Yeah.
I couldn't get
Well, I mean,
a-
if you can fit your
I need a
It
pinky in
just it
there,
smells. It
if you
smells.
can fit your pinky in there,
Yeah,
you should
yeah.
be able to fit like the end of a washcloth. in
I get
there.
it.
And
I
the
get it
thing
now.
is I'll smell it, and then I'll just be like, "Oh, that's gross."
No, see, no,
And then
I
I'll-
don't smell the belly button.
You don't?
No,
I
don't do that.
I smell it.
Brendan smells everything.
I mean, it's if it,
Hey.
it just grosses me out.
Yeah.
But it's like,
Do you smell
I can't help it.
new electronics?
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, when you
If I
open,
open
it, yeah.
A book?
Well, yeah, I was saying like a book, a new DVD. I always smell that. It's
Yeah.
so good.
Yep. The
Yep.
sniff test.
So good.
Well, who's the guy on YouTube that does that on everything? does the sniff test.
unbox therapy? Oh no. I don't know who that
One of
guy
those
is.
guys.
The smell of books is why I love books over tablets and such. Like I
Yeah.
can't. I don't.
You don't smell nothing when you smell a tablet.
You know, there's no smell and there's
Only
no texture.
initially when you open the tablet.
Yeah.
Like
Right,
when you
yeah,
get it out
but
of the
you're
package.
smelling the
There's,
plastic.
there's
and
no
the-
smell. There's
yeah.
no texture because I like the feel of the pages too. Because like the paper in a book is different than like just regular paper. Like I love the way it feels.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
This
this
is
is
amazing.
you know, there were so many things that make us tick,
Yeah.
and truthfully, I blame the industrial age.
I blame coffee.
If we were busy,
Coffee has me.
if we were, well, that's different. That's what ticks do you
It's like
have?
you give me 2 cups of coffee and I'm gonna sniff my own nuts.
I'll find a way to get down there.
I mean, that's just terrible. But I'm sure women don't deal with the same things.
I'm sure they have
different.
different types of.
They have different ticks.
This is when
tell
we need
me
someone like
when
Aaron
a
on the
woman
show. so
scratches
that,
under their breast or something that they don't go. Dang,
Oh, they got
sweating
they
under
got
there.
swamp
You
boob.
can't tell me they
I
don't
forget
got
who
swamp
said
boob.
that. They've got
they
swamp
got
boob.
swamp boob,
That's-
like swamp ass.
Yes, but it's for
That's,
a woman.
that's my favorite PSA video ever. Is the one with Nathan Fillion talking about
Swamp
Swamp
ass?
ass? Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Well, all I know is swamp boob is a real thing.
Oh, yeah.
When you get man boobs, you get it, but women have it all the time, and
I
it
ain't
gets
got it
sweaty
yet.
under there. And it stinks. It's like anything where it's dark and
Well,
moist.
yeah.
Wow.
All right.
You wanna go
love
ahead and
it.
wrap
No,
this
I'm
up?
serious.
No,
I blame the
it's
industrial
swamp.
age.
Mhm.
If we were men working, you didn't have time to sniff ourselves and do all these weird quirks, we would be out there busting our butt. We would have only lived to 30. We'd be dead by now.
And we'd have really, really
But-
sweaty
Yeah,
areas.
but you just don't have time to check
you don't
it.
have time to sniff it.
You just got to keep working. You got to keep busting your ass off. And now we have time to sit around and smell books and touch ourselves like Keith's doing.
yeah. It's like, yeah, buddy.
Let me dig in that swamp
Scratching,
boob.
scratching right here on my chest.
I know something that
thumb.
Keith does.
Oh, God. He picks.
Picks. That's what I was gonna say.
That is a nervous tick.
Yeah.
That one is a nervous
That one
tick.
is a nervous
Now,
tick.
I mean, I don't know about picking to the degree that Keith does.
Yeah.
But if I got a spot somewhere on me, I'll pick that sucker until it's
Oh, absolutely.
gone. Like if it's a.
But do you do it in the middle of conversations
No.
with people? Keith, you do that.
It's a nervous
No.
tick. I
It
mean,
is?
My
yeah.
grandmother
Okay.
did it. My
Yeah.
grandmother did it real
Really?
bad. I mean, she would pick spots on her face to the
Wow.
point,
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
sister does
it
it
is a
too.
nervous
Well,
thing.
maybe that's a family thing.
It might be.
Maybe.
It's hereditary.
Hereditary. Alrighty, guys.
I pluck my eyelashes like
I
that
don't
pull
do
them out.
that.
I
I
do
do
that.
that.
I do my noses.
I pluck my
hairs.
unibrow.
because I got like loose eyelashes.
So that's
There's
just
one
out
right
of
there.
necessity, unless I want to
Just
have
weird
a unibrow.
stuff. I store them in a jar and keep them too.
That's not.
No, I'm
true.
just kidding.
Alrighty, guys. I think that's going to do it for this episode
Please.
of the Red Moon Podcast. That's right. We've given you extra entertainment value tonight.
13
want-
minutes of it.
To thank you for watching. We love you guys out there. And as always, you can tune in every single week, Tuesday nights, live here on the Red Moon Podcast. That's right, 9 p.m., YouTube, Facebook Live. And also check out our social down there at the bottom of the screen. Hit us up on all of our platforms, social media platforms. Follow us. Hit that bell icon to not only subscribe and notify you when we have new video, new content up.
Ding, ding.
Ring my bell.
Yeah. What
I just-
movie we reviewing next week?
We are actually reviewing something that has been out now
Well, it came out, I think, just this past week.
Yeah, okay, so it's been out for only a week.
It came out
It's not-
just like Wonder Woman and Soul. It's just those were much bigger films.
Right. So now we're reviewing George Clooney's Midnight Sky. I don't think George Clooney directed it or wrote it. He's just in it.
He produced it.
I think he did produce it.
Yeah.
Okay. But
Because we
starring
haven't
George
been
Clooney.
disappointed enough this year.
And you can watch that movie on Netflix.
Yeah. So if you
So,
have a subscription to
I haven't
Netflix-
actually seen it yet. I can't say whether it's disappointing. I'm just going off of word of mouth.
That's sadly
But we're going to find out for sure if it is good or not.
how
next
we're going to
week.
start the new year, you know?
Not with a bang, but a whimper.
Alrighty, guys, that is going to do it for this time on the Red Moon Podcast. Right there at the bottom of your screen is our email, rmpodcast@redmoonproductions.com. Until next time, I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian.
And
Gertrude Florin Trout sews Bermudan penguin eggs down her excoriating gullet.
Gullet.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For more reviews, previous podcast shows, and everything Red Moon, visit our website, redmoonproductions.com. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for Red Moon Productions, LLC. We'll see you at the movies.